Talk to me about prioritizing self-care in your life and your journey with that, what it looks like now, how you got to it. Was there a distinct moment you're like, I got to put myself first here, not only just because I'm worth it value-wise, but for my safety.
Self-care can be a matter of life or death. I have found this to be true. I am 4.5 years out of my 22-year marriage, and I ran for the hills, so to speak, and ran to safety. Now it looks very different than it did back then. Now it's a constant reminder of I'm in a whole different phase of my life because my last child just went away to college. And now it's just me for the first time ever. I went from, family childhood home almost essentially to being in a married home. And it wasn't for religious purposes or anything. I had a little bit of a timeline there where I was on my own, but then I met my former husband and fell in love and all that. So we went very quickly into that home. So now I'm on my own, and it's daunting. It can be. But what I've realized is, for me, education has been key as to what am I feeling? What am I going through? There's loneliness, there's sadness, there's grief, all of that. And I realized that I do matter. And even by myself, I do matter. And, there's two sides of a coin that we have in our heads. I realize there's the part where, of course I matter. This is what I do. I'm great in the world. I say hello to strangers. I smile at them. I make other people feel good. I'm a healthcare worker. The other side is I don't matter because I don't have a spouse or a family or children to cook for every night, or who cares? But, we have to really feel that the other side is more on the heavier side of the scale than the parts of us that maybe somebody else has said to us. You don't matter. If you disappeared, nobody would notice. Things like that are said or have been said to me. When in the meantime, as a healthcare worker, as an essential worker, going back to work for the first time in 20 years during COVID, I know I'm essential. I know I'm valuable. And I have to realize that those words, and that's one self-care, is writing down, what is it? What is it? What am I feeling? Why am I feeling this? What does this mean to me? And I changed the meaning that maybe somebody else said to what I feel. So there's a lot of internal work that I'm doing. I do go to group therapy now, which I love because it's being taught by college students, or it's being held. And I learn something new every week, a theory on psychology. In addition to that, I love going onto YouTube and just learning about things. And it keeps me personally very grounded. Because I'm at the point where, again, 4.5 years later, I've done the meditation and the yoga and the incense and the crystals, and I've done the individual therapy. And so I've kind of taken all of that into one and gone to the next rung on the ladder, so to speak. Or as Carolyn May says, the next floor on the tower, where you could see a little bit higher, you could see a little bit wider of a view, you could see maybe a little bit more of your future. Because on the first floor of the basement, which is where we're at when we leave a really bad situation, we can't see anything but maybe even the sewage. I mean, really don't try and do that visual, but just say, meaning it's dark and it's cold and, it's like we don't even know if we're going to get out. And we have to take ourselves out of that and go to the next level, or at least we have windows where we can see outside. Hopefully everyone can kind of visual this. And that's the level of work where you really have to get support and ask for help. And so I would say number two, first one would be educating yourself. And number two would be getting the support. Maybe number one should be support. But, there are those nights where it's 4 a.m. and you can't sleep. And what do you have to do? You're not going to call your friends at that hour, even if someone tells you to. So you have to do something. Crying on the floor is fine, but I feel like, okay, let me get on my phone and let me get on YouTube and let me listen to, or put on a podcast, or even if I drift off to sleep, it's something else in my head other than a bad ruminating thoughts. So those are, along with the self-care that we all know, drinking a hot cup of tea and I just finished a 6-mile walk. Actually, that's why I needed to keep I kept walking because I was listening to something and I was like, I'm just going to keep walking. I'm going to keep walking. And I was like, oh, wait a second. I'm really far. And I had to come back. But you know what? It's when we have anxiety in our chest, in our throat, it's almost like in our minds, we have to get our body to catch up to that. And how do we do that? For me, it's walking. You know, for someone else, it could be something else. But for me, it's walking. I live where it's flat. There's no mountains. If there were mountains, I'd be climbing a mountain. But, and now I'm back and I'm like, oh, okay, I feel better. You know, not only could I feel like I could eat whatever I want to, but, you know, because I don't have to worry about that. But I'm like, okay, good. And it's very empowering also.
Yeah.
So, you know, those are some of the self-care things that I do personally.
Well, and I think you brought up some really good points. I love the writing down how you're feeling. That's a practice that I put into play every day. And I think it's something that everyone can benefit from because it allows you to acknowledge where you are and to name where you are so that you can address it according to what you need in that day. And that allows you to make sure that your self-care is not just a checklist, but it's actually applicable to what it is that's happening right now. And so I love that practice. And the support piece is so, you know, having community and having people, but also having those tools where you can help yourself. Because there's always someone's not always going to be available to you all the time, every day. So learning what are those things that help me? What are my triggers and what helps me through it? What helps me? Okay, I've named it. This is what I need. How can I address that now? That's really empowering to know that you can do that for yourself. So thank you so much for sharing that. Confidently setting boundaries. Talk to me about your boundaries journey. Like clearly there were some issues with that for many, many years. So talk to me about your boundaries journey.
Forgive me for my dog barking. She's very little, but her bark, she's, you know, she may be little, but she is fierce. She's about 4 pounds, but her bark is something off the charts. And she's on my lap because, you know, there's no boundaries here, apparently. She has to, you know, always.
That's hilarious. Exhibit A.
Yeah, exactly. Exhibit A, right? You know, but they're, you know, our fur babies, whatever they are, you know.
Yeah.
So, yes, clearly I have boundary issues. So we'll start with that. You know, coming from a very large family, being the youngest of very many siblings, ethnically loud and boisterous and fun and all of that. You know, sitting at dinner and everyone had their spot, but everyone ate off each other's plate. There were no boundaries. And I come from that. And it was a very traditional household. Father had his position, mother had her position. And, you know, each child, family systems theory, each child at the level, first child, second child, third, we all had our, you know, positions, you know, naturally we all do in families, just to give that. So being the youngest, there were no boundaries where, you know, oh, it's like the Mikey commercial. Oh, let Mikey eat it. You know, he'll try anything. It was like I was the experimental kid. Something new came in. Oh, give it to her. She'll do it. But the point is that, so, you know, we develop like people pleasing issues when we're kids. Yeah. And, you know, I grew up and I was, you know, the ugly duckling of the group. And some would say I was adorable. Okay, great. Back in the 70s, I was pretty cute. But the point is that as we grow older, that turns into something else. It turns into, what do I have to do to get them to love me? How am I going to get them to stay with me? He's turning his head away from me and looking at someone else. What do I have to do? And then, you know, when you're with someone, a partner, a person, anyone who sees a crack in you, and if they're not a good person, they will step into that crack and make it wider. And I didn't have boundaries because I thought, okay, this is my spouse, this is my partner in life and everything. And, you know, we're going to do everything together. And I had lost someone very close to me and came back from that funeral and said, I really want to live my life to its fullest for myself and that person. And I didn't realize who I was saying it to. And my hand was grasped and brought me into a world that no was not an option. If I put up a boundary, what I got back was not worth the no, or I didn't realize that would be the case. And there were a lot of things that were given to me, coerced into me, put into me, I didn't even know, that made my ability, my conscious ability to be limited and compromised. So any boundary I had clearly was gone, and it would happen instantly. If we were at a party and there was a cocktail made for me, by this person or people that I thought were like brothers and sisters to me. But then I could see and feel myself. I could hear it, that I wasn't being as strict with myself as I normally would be. And I didn't know what was going on at the time. Of course, when you look back in hindsight and all of that, that's the whole part of being up on that tower and looking down. And now it's like, oh, wow, now I can see it.
Yeah.
And of course, I always say, well, if I was with this person now, none of that would have happened. But this person was killed. That person was killed off. Like the strong person of me when I was still there, she was totally, I've buried her. She was totally coerced into a situation and really manipulated to the part of me that was so strong was taken over. And, it wasn't just one person. For me, it was a collective group of people, like 3 different groups I was involved in that I thought were my friends and family, because my family was isolated. And so, the boundaries came off. The guys were like, oh, we're like brothers and sisters. And the sisters were like, come sit with us and let's be friends. And you put down your boundaries when people are kind to you, and you have that sadness of, where's my family? Oh, well, these are now my family. We call ourselves friends that are family. So your boundaries are knocked down at that point. Yeah. And then it can get dangerous. And the whole I am love, that is who I am. That's who I've always been since I was young. And when you feel that way and your heart is open with no boundaries, that's when it gets dangerous. Yeah. That's when people really take advantage. And listen, it could be at a workplace even, which did happen to me after recently, because I went from, I realized what had happened in my romantic relationships, but now it's like, I'm in a workplace. Okay. Whatever anyone needs, I'm in 24/7. Here's my number. Call me when you need me. I'm here for you. No boundaries. Because I thought I was doing something really great and helpful, and I was, but it was to my detriment. Right. So you see, trauma and all of this can look very different, but it's still the same basic ideals. So love and boundaries is crucial.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and for you, I think when people see those cracks and they're not good people and they manipulate those, I guess they build trust up over time. Like these things don't start happening overnight. There's a trust that's built. I mean, you were in this relationship for 22 years. You were parents. So this was built up over time. And as they break down a little bit more, then they start taking more control of the situation or start implementing things. Right. Because it's just continues to build on itself. Is that accurate?
Yes. It was 18 years before anything happened. Wow. And I didn't realize though that there was another lifestyle happening behind scenes. I had no idea. Oh wow. Yeah. I had no idea. And I didn't know what I didn't know. As most a lot of people say in abusive situations, I didn't know what it looked like. I didn't know, because people that are like that, the scary part is they're 4 days on, 3 days off. I say 4 days, they're really kind. They're kind. Oh, I'm so sorry. Let me make you dinner. Let's go out. Let's just be together as a family. But then the 3 days, usually on the weekends, in this scenario, it's, and it's a gradual scale. It's a gradual escalation of let's go to dinner. Let's go to dinner and have drinks after. Let's go to dinner, drinks, and let's go to this club. And come home at 2 and we're together alone. Let's go to dinner, drinks, the club. Let's now stay out till 6 a.m. Nothing's good happening until 6 a.m. Nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, I was like, okay, well, I was very old fashioned at the time and like, all right, he's guiding me and whatever. But at this point, after a certain, there's no wherewithal of what are we doing? Where am I going? Oh, okay, I'll support him. So I might be sitting there quietly trying to take it in, figuring out what I'm doing here.
Mm-hmm.
And the minute I would again push back, there was a lot of really bad pushback to me. And, I was in a situation where I didn't have anything in my name. Actually, I shouldn't say that. The financial abuse was there. Things opening up in my name that I had no idea about. I mean, to this day, I'm literally paying things that I didn't know that existed.
Wow.
But I also had 2 special needs children I was taking care of. And that was I was in the schools. I was your PTA president. I was your room parent, doing all the holiday parties, getting all the gifts, doing things for the teachers. I was volunteering in the schools, volunteering in my religious organizations, doing fundraisers. I mean, that was my real personality, my real life. But then I was dragged into this dark world that I did not even know existed. I didn't come from that, so I don't know. Because I was raised by parents who did the things that I said I did.
Right.
So, yeah, till this day, the person I was with, his parents don't even know. They have no idea. Yeah, I've protected a lot of people from knowing the truth because it's a lot to take in. There's a lot of details. There's a lot of stories. It was 6 years. And it was 6 years of someone who really got worse. As you can imagine, really, really got worse.
Yeah.
And I lost who I was, because I was doing this during the day and this at night. There were many weekends where I didn't sleep, maybe 3 to 5 hours for the weekend. And then Monday morning up for school, getting those kids ready, making lunches with notes in them. And I'd be making his lunch, and putting notes in his lunch too. And I mean, because that was that was my self-care, believe it or not, was taking care of my family at the time.
And trying to remind yourself of some remnants of who you actually are.
Exactly. That's exactly the case.
Yeah.
And I knew that if I dropped the ball, my kids would suffer and nothing. And no one was going to allow that. Even to this day, no one's going to stop me. And they're older, they're adult children, but I'm still on top of it. I'm that annoying mother that you tell me not to text you, I'm going to text you every day.
Exactly.
Now, I'm like the dog. I have no boundaries, because I know deep down it's, just saying hi, just, love you, or, a funny Instagram with an animal that whatever it is, or a picture of the dog when my daughter's in college. Like they love it, they love it. I make them remind because they heard many stories after
I'm
when
sure
I left. And I have one child that believed and still does. And I have one child that was like, how could she have been doing this if she was always in our school? She was reading to my classroom. She was 13 when she said that. Smart kid.
Yeah. Putting the pieces together.
Yep.
And I'm going to leave it up to you how much of this you want to share. We're kind of, because again, safety is an issue within this, but again, gradual, the levels of abuse that were happening. And you mentioned the financial abuse. And I think that we can't lose sight of that because yes, there can be physical abuse, sexual abuse,
emotional,
all those emotional abuse, mental abuse. Financial abuse is a piece of that when there's like that. And I think that's something. So if something seems funny within that for you, don't be afraid to call that what it is. I think sometimes we hesitate. Oh, they're my partner. They're my spouse.
Right.
We share whatever. We're in this together. And it's like, there's in this together. And then there's outright manipulation.
Correct.
Not being afraid to, if something seems off, it's probably off. Trust that inner knowing. If something's off, it's probably off. But also not underestimating the impact of trauma, the impact of being manipulated, because people like this person you were married to prey on that. They look for that.
Yes.
Because that's what allows them to operate in the world. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to. So it's easy to, I come not anything like this, but from a trauma background, and was in a relationship that was very abusive. And it was all based on the fact I have to do everything I can to make sure he doesn't stop loving me.
Correct.
Love in quotes. And
Yes.
and so when you start going down that road, and I had years of, just shame that I looked back on, I'm like, my God, what the heck was I thinking? But you have to like really extend that empathy to yourself and forgiveness and compassion to understand, well, let's look at where I was at that point.
Right.
Would you say that's been true for you as you kind of come out on the other side of this?
Absolutely. So here's what I compare it to. It's as if you're in the middle of a whirlpool, jacuzzi, whatever you want to call it, and you're spinning, and you can't get out. Like being in a tornado, so to speak. So you're in water, and you're going underneath, and you get up for air, and that person, whoever is hurting you, pushes you down. And you keep spinning, and then you come up for air, and he pushes you down. He or she pushes you down again, or the situation, or your parent, whatever it is, pushes you down. And at some point, when you realize this is it, if I don't get out, I'm going to die. And that's hopefully, whether it be through prayer or spiritual being, or the strength of our ancestors, or let's say our female ancestors in this case, you catapult yourself out of the situation. You're going to die in that, and you can't see what's happening. You're in danger, but you can't see, you don't know where to grasp onto, because you're spinning. And, you try and grasp onto other people, let's say, or what have you. And maybe those people are involved in the whole scenario, because as I say, it's like a Jeffrey Epstein situation where, he took young people, which is disgusting. It's horrible. It's like no words, but there's, our childhood vulnerabilities, that shadow that we talk about nowadays so much. When you give that to somebody and you honor them with those inner thoughts about you, and you share them, and they use it and tell everyone about you, then it's like they're dealing with a child. And that's what happened to me, because he knew all my vulnerabilities, who knew all my insecurities, everything, and would exploit them. And so that's the situation I was in. So the people I was trying to ask for help knew what was going on.
Wow.
And would, have their own agenda as well.
Yeah. Just perpetuate the situation.
Correct. So, and it got really bad. It was very dangerous for me, and I didn't know who to trust. And then I realized, I have friends from when I was in, child, and high school friends, elementary school friends, people that I was still in touch with, very close to still, that didn't live around me. They weren't involved in any sort of like crazy lifestyle, nothing. They were solid. And that's who I reached out to finally. And they're like, you have to get out. You have to get out. One of them saw me, and I had lost 18 pounds in 3 months without trying.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
This is before whatever's going on nowadays. Everyone's losing weight, but this was like, and I eat very healthy and what have you, but I couldn't there was like no time to eat, because again, I was working, I was taking care of my kids now. And at nighttime, it wasn't, we were going out for dinner. Now it's like, grab whatever you can before he wants to go out for drinks. So there was no opportunity to, so, and then I don't even know what was in my system, to be honest with you, at that point.
Jeez.
And there were drugs, and he offered this person drugs, and she was a government official.
Wow.
And was told, like, you need to not ask me these questions. And there were other threats to people in writing, and everybody was these people were very protective of me. So they were concerned about whether or not, when they reported, what would happen to me, even financially, because I had nothing.
Sure.
There was one checking account in my name, even though he had at least 10. And there was 19 cents in it when I got divorced.
Jeez.
After 22 years. Yeah. And, I stopped working to raise my children. And I was a healthcare worker from the time I was 22.
Yeah.
And I stopped working. And when I did start working again, and I had realized I better put some of this money in my own account with my own name, by myself.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he found out, totally flipped out completely. And that, little things like that started adding up and got really dangerous.
Yeah. Wow.
And that's when I realized, okay, I need to have a plan.
Yeah.
And, that's when stuff started. Well, like most women, I have 3 jackets in the car and 3 pairs of shoes just in case I need this, this, and this. There's an umbrella, there's grocery bags, things like that. So I started putting a little bit more. And I started putting a little bit more into my car. And I didn't do this, but I've thought about this, heard it, and it's great. If you can, you go grocery shopping and you can say, do you want cash back? You get cash back. Or if you're in an abusive situation and they look at the receipt, you say, our daughter has a birthday party. I'm going to get the child a gift card.
Yeah.
And you can even buy a birthday card. And so, whatever the situation may be, and now you have a gift card for $25. And, you do that a couple of times. Oh, I need to buy gifts for the teachers or, something like that.
Sure.
And then you get it in the form of Visa cards. So at least you have something.
Sure. That's
something.
really smart.
So, and then it looks, and again, buy thank you cards, buy whatever it is you have to do. Packet of birthday cards for $5 at the store, whatever you have to do, and just start, getting yourself out that way.
Okay.
Unfortunately, burner phones are necessary. Burner phones, but you have to hide those things. I don't care. Hide them in your pants. Walk around with them, whatever the case may be. So, these are things when you're in the really like the other end of it,
Yeah.
But in any case, I always say every time I do one of these shows that trauma, there's a number line and trauma is that. And it starts at 0 and it goes to infinity. And, a 5-year-old child, one of my patients was getting headaches, 5 years old. And we found out that this poor baby was grinding his teeth and, 5 years old. Grinding and clenching, and we're like, what's going on here? And why is he having headaches? And, we found out that he was being bullied terribly at school in kindergarten. So that child's trauma is very relative to an adult who's being bullied or an adult who's being abused.
Yeah.
But he was being abused by another 5-year-old on the playground. And so that child needs the same sort of exit strategy. Well, obviously different exit strategy, but some sort of exit strategy. He needs to have hope that he has help and to get the support. And then the therapy, of course, after. Yeah. Because these are all defining moments for him or even for myself. Because, people say to me after they hear some of the situations that I was put in, I'm shocked you're not a drug addict or an alcoholic or that you get up and go to work. And that was not an option for me.
Yeah.
And I left right before COVID and went back to work.
Thank God.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. I left, I went to a safe house and right before COVID and I was like, what am I going to do with myself? Yeah. And luckily, I kept my license active and I knew that I had that to full, but I was scared to death going back to work. Lots changed in 20 years.
Yes.
Technology, right? And that was really saying, like, why can't I see as well? Oh, okay, I'm 20 years older. So had to monitor that a little bit. But, it was also very empowering to go back to work and to be around people that were quote unquote normal. And, but, working together as a team because I was very isolated for so long. And the people who I thought were my family, that were my team, were not. And, now I'm working, let's say in an office or hospital, and the people around me, we all do have an agenda. And the agenda is we're going to take care of ourselves, each other, and our patients. And so it's for the greater good. And, it brought me back to who I was. So,
yeah, that's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. That's remarkable. And you mentioned a few things here that'll tie in nicely to this in taking care of our emotional health as much as our physical health. You've mentioned a few instances where those ties are there. the weight that you lost in a 3-month period. The example of the 5-year-old being bullied and grinding their teeth. These things are interconnected. So talk to me about, and then even in just with your work, I mean, you come out of this very traumatic, dangerous situation and you go back into work in the healthcare sector during COVID. I mean, I can't even imagine all of the things that your poor nervous system is trying to work through in all of this. So talk to me about all of the emotional, mental, physical health connections as you're dealing with all of this.
Okay. Well, I will tell you that I always say my nervous system is shot, but I don't want to say that because a lot of things that happened to me, the abuse was constant. It was either individual or it was as a group, being taken advantage of, physically, sexually, emotionally, all of it, being strangled to the point where I'd pass out and I'd wake up and he'd still be active, so to speak, in our bed.
Ugh.
And, God only knows what, I mean, I haven't done a brain MRI, but that's on the list.
Yeah.
So, I've been like the 6 mile walk is to really help with that anxiety, that heart rate, that brainwave stuff going from one part of the brain to the other, from the amygdala to the frontal. And this is what I'm saying. Like, I love education. I'm a bit of a nerd that way, but if you really can understand even physically why you're feeling this way, take it out of the emotional, get it into the intellectual, and then go into the physical of walking or what have you, doing like crunches on the floor, whatever it is, stretching. It really helps you master yourself. And
get it out of your body.
Get it out of your body. And then you feel like, okay, now I'm in control. So for me, it was really hard. I was scared to death to go back to work in general and then going in and I had I had a few successes before COVID. So that was great.
Good.
I went back into as far as being in a work situation. And then I realized, wow, I'm really great at this. Like, even though it's been 20 years and that's the whole, like, I am love as a healthcare worker, that has to be your number one value. It just does. Because along with that, of course, comes compassion and empathy. And that really is the most important part. The rest will follow if you're educated, which I knew that I was. I was educated enough in my field that I had no worries about that. So that really helped. And then COVID hit. And we were one of the first to say to be shut down. And I went right into panic. And that's when I walked 4 times a day and I started writing. And I'll tell you what, I got into great shape during COVID because then I started running and riding my bike and like everyone's gaining weight. And I was just outside because I couldn't take the internal, because internally in my body, it was going crazy. There was haywire, like my electric system was popping like popcorn, like the nerves, the synapses were really going off. So I was like, get outside and just go and do. And at this point, I really didn't have any friends because I left an entire life.
Sure. And I'm sure you were isolated from anybody that would be, of help to you or have any sense of what's going on. Yeah.
The other moms, the religious organizations, like he cut me off from all that because they weren't fun enough. That's really what he said. Right.
Wow.
Okay. So now
there were potential victims there.
Correct. So I walked away from all of that, and which was fine because I guess at some point I needed to be on my own, which ironically is where I'm at now again. But that's okay. Because, when the kids go off to college, even as an empty nester, you're like, okay, now what? Okay, so that's a whole nother.
And that's an adjustment. And that's an adjustment without any of your other trauma.
Correct. So especially if you're a single parent. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So especially a single parent who was part of a couple who was a full-time stay-at-home mother who was very active too. Now it's like, it's such a blessing to see them off and to launch them. And I love that. And so to me, that's my greatest accomplishment. And that is what drove me every single moment of every single day. And I knew that I had to do. And so anyway, going back into, COVID, when I went back to work, when they finally opened the doors for us, I was in one of the most exposed situations I was the one that wore the N95 for 12 hours a day.
Wow.
Until this day, I still wear a KN. But yeah, I was one of those people, and it was really scary. And I was able to adjust myself a little bit with that because I knew I was taking, we have universal precautions as the healthcare workers, even if, and we always have. So that it was just ramped up a little bit. So I was okay with that. But my nervous system wasn't, because also I'd be with a patient and it was boom, I get a flashback out of nowhere. And it was, our mind sometimes doesn't know the difference between reality and perception.
Absolutely. And if anything about that situation relates back to that, those triggers go off.
Correct. And so I would have a panic attack while I was working on my patient, and I couldn't stop. I couldn't take off my mask. I couldn't do anything, because not only was I being protective in a COVID, sterilized situation, but I still had to be a professional too. And I had to, I should say. So what did I do? Okay, I went, and then I had to figure out the strategies of what I was going to do in this situation. Breathing, number one. Breathing. What are you in control of? Your breath. No matter what. You don't need anything. You don't need anyone. You've got lungs. You've got a heart. You've got blood running through your system. Just breathe. Just breathe. And the second thing is, okay, I'm going to take out what I visualize right now, and I'm going to focus on what's in front of me. What's in front of me was the patient, and what the patient needed. And then number three, what is it am I telling to myself? That's when I started saying, if you have a prayer or something you read or a chant over and over and over and over again. Even it's, I am okay. I am safe. I am protected. I am okay. I am safe. I am protected. It's like you see in the movie The Help. What is it?
Yes.
I am smart. I am kind. I am beautiful, sort of thing. So it's the same idea. At some point, I explored Tina Turner. I had seen her show, her theater show, then watched the movie. And I was a part of a women's healing circle at some point. And I write. I'm in the middle of writing 2 books now, actually.
Yeah.
So I wrote a piece about that. But I started researching her chant when she became a Buddhist. And she has some really great pieces on Apple Music as well as on YouTube with her singing her chant. And so, and her rocking back and forth. And I will tell you that and you see a lot of people in a lot of religions, they do rock back and forth and they do say prayers. And there is something very cathartic about that.
Yeah.
So in whatever situation, you're a teacher, you're a nurse, you're an engineer, you're a receptionist, you're in a position where you can't move, you can't change, you still have to keep going. You can do yourself a breath and a chant and focus on what's in front of you. And it'll get you through the moment. And then, maybe after you're done, reward yourself with a tea or a coffee or whatever it is. There should be some reward. There should be some, because that is how you'll change that process. It's not like, oh my God, I'm so weak. I had no, it's normal for us to have flashbacks.
Absolutely.
If we've been through any trauma. The same thing as that 5-year-old boy. I just pray that, the parents, they were given enough education material and hopefully they went forward, and it's like, wow, look what I got through. Look what I went through.
Yeah.
And that's,
and that's empowering.
Yes, it's very empowering. And you have to empower. So I switched my thing would be like, what do I have to do to get him to love me? Right? Isn't that what we used to say? Who do I have to be? What do I have to look like? To how can I empower myself and others with all of the unconditional love that God has put inside of me.
How we can support ourselves and other women in living unapologetically, because that last phrase is that wrapped up really nicely. And also just with the very brave work you're doing now. So talk to me about that journey and how that has evolved.
It's still evolving. Everything should always be evolving, which is such a beautiful thing. So when I left the toxic work situation, I had a friend who lives in the mountains, and he's he's worked for some really great people his whole life and was in charge of a lot of situations and groups and conventions, all of that. And he's like, get your butt up here. So I ran up to the mountains, and I realized being in nature, the cooler weather, being around deer, animals, things that I love, and being around children really was healing for me. And he's the one that got me onto Podmatch. It got me into podcasting. And he's, I showed him some of my writing pieces, and he's like, wow, this is incredible. And, he's someone who I really opened up to and told some of my stories. And I'll be honest with you, the men's reactions to some of what I've told them really validated me, because it's something for us women to be like, wow, that's horrible. And we're used to talking about like our relationship since we were teenage girls or even younger.
Right.
Like whatever the situation be, whatever you identify yourself as, whatever it is for you. It's like, oh yeah, they're terrible. Or it's like we gossip, let's just say, about relationships. Right. But to hear the men tell me that was a horrible situation, that person should be ashamed. They should all be ashamed of themselves. You're such a good one. Like anyone would have loved to have had you as their person or in a relationship with you. And not that I need validation from anyone, but it was interesting for me. That's the intellectual in me, to see, to hear, to feel their empathy for me, their shock. I mean, I didn't consider myself being sex trafficked until a male friend that I've known since I was a child said, hey, do you know what that's called? And this is before it was out in the open. So this is like 4.5, 5 years ago. And he's like, this is what went on. I'm like, come on, no. And, we all think it should be someone who looks different than me. And, and
is not married and all those things.
Exactly. All of that,
Yeah.
And it's because remember, I'm still being convinced that, oh, I wanted this, that was just, oh, for sure. Oh, absolutely. To this day, you wanted that. And, we did it together, and oh, absolutely. Wow. And you just decided one day you didn't want it. And listen, there are pictures and videos of me in the most compromising positions any mother or woman should ever be in. Yeah. He recorded me at times when we were alone, and he had me call him by a different name. I mean, this is a person that's a huge, I know. And, again, it's like I had that, this isn't right, but I didn't know how to get out of the situation. Or, like Eckhart Tolle says, there's a space between who you are in your subconscious or your consciousness and what you're acting like. You can actually see yourself, and there was I could see myself at some point throughout a night, let's say, acting differently, but I didn't know, and I couldn't control it because of the things that were running through my body. And then all
the drugs that were happening to you that you didn't know.
Yeah. And so exactly. And the situations and the danger part of it, or, being in the back of a club, being locked in a room with 3 men. And, this person is in charge of the situation, and I've got security looking in as opposed to helping me. So, I mean, it's there's 6 years of stuff like that. And
that is just
awful. It was awful. It was awful.
It had to feel like a Twilight Zone experience almost.
It was. And because I'd always wake up, if I was able to sleep, I'd always wake up and get up and make everyone breakfast and make sure the laundry was done and everyone would be sleeping. And he would sleep until like the next day, essentially, and want to do it all over again. And it was tough. It was tough.
Wow.
Like I said, that's the whirlpool.
Wow. Yes.
And it's like, how do I get out? Where's the ladder? Where's the hook? Where's the rope? And I asked, in the end, some of these, but the men who I thought were like my brothers for help. Sure. And they just manipulated me more so because they saw the really big crack. Cause now, I'm that wife I'm so unbelievably loyal to my ex-husband. At the time, I'm, loyal to my friends, but now they see I'm asking for help from him, from that person.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, we'll help you, but we're going to have you do this too.
Yeah, but there's a price.
It's going to look, there's a price. And the price was so subtle that I didn't even see it because I didn't know to see it. And, I'm this naive person that's just like, okay, I'm going to get away from this situation, not realizing I'm now being brought into another situation.
Wow.
Now I'm really sharp. Like no one's coming near me. No one's touching me. No one's saying I'm not doing anything. I'm not asking people for approval. I'm not asking for permission.
Yeah.
Brene Brown, give yourself permission to do whatever feels right. If it doesn't feel right, get out, walk away. I don't care what it is. There's always another job. There's always another person. There's always another apartment, whatever the scenario. There's another flight, whatever it is, that you don't feel comfortable or safe. I mean, would you get on a plane with a bad wheel or a bad engine? No, it's the same thing, So, and that's the takeaway. That's the takeaway.
Absolutely.
And I don't care if your gut is skewed by trauma. Perception is reality. If it doesn't feel right, it's not right for you at that time. Maybe once you're healed and you want to say there's a relationship you may have not felt well, but maybe now you feel better about it because you're better.
Sure.
Try it. Try it with boundaries. Bring up that wall. Don't be like me with the dog who's like on my lap for an hour. You probably heard, she's so cute. You've probably heard her growl or bark because she thinks she's a Doberman and she's 4 pounds of blonde curly hair. I mean, it's very funny.
Oh my gosh, that is funny.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. That's, there's so much in that of just that, again, we go back to it and I talk about it all the time, but that trusting that inner knowing, it's there to protect you, but we're told not to trust it. We're told that we're bad, that it's not trustworthy. And so it's hard to do that. So just being willing to own that is so powerful when you can get to that point, because it will tell you. It will tell you.
And you know what? If you're questioning it, educate yourself. Get yourself on YouTube and look at the leaders of our world. Look at the leaders. I mean, go to Oprah. Oprah's not going to lie to us. We all know that.
Sure.
She's really brilliant. She doesn't have a political stance. She doesn't care. She's all about being good to people, taking care of yourself and finding happiness, and, very spiritual. There's some really great authors. If like Brene Brown, like we just mentioned, she's been researching people for 30 years and what makes them tick. Listen to those people and teach yourself. Financial, listen to Susie Orman. Brilliant. So, it's funny because I did, dip my toe in some of that and I knew better, but I was so clouded by trying to get love from this other person or people that I just kind of threw it by the wayside. Well, what do you think was the first thing I did when I left? I went right back into it.
Yeah.
And it reminded me, like I said. And so, I might have been in that basement, coming back full circle. I might have been in that basement, but that was the support for me. Not only my family wrapped their arms literally and figuratively around me. They were basically like, welcome back, because they've been waiting for me. Yes. And they really helped me. But I also went back to what I knew. Marianne Williamson, her old books from back in the day, not the politics. I don't get involved in that.
Yeah.
The political stuff, it really helped me understand who I was again as a woman and the power, the gift. My gift as a woman to the world, to a partner, whether you're in a heterosexual or a homosexual relationship, your gift as a woman is beyond. There's a reason why we are, whether we choose to or not, whether we can or not, we have the organs to have a child. And I know I'm getting a little deep here, but I believe in that. I've been studying some social science things now, with some really great authors and researchers. And I think that the more educated you get with yourself, the less likely you're going to find yourself in situations where somebody has the power, because learning things will empower you. And that is
knowledge is power.
Knowledge
Absolutely.
is complete power. And it's knowledge across the board, because I'm knowledge in my healthcare. You might be somebody who's in financial, you're knowledgeable about finances, but what else are you knowledgeable about? You might be knowledgeable about sports. Okay, great. Yeah. Now let's look at the other wheel. So there is an emotional wheel and there is an abuse wheel. And if you look at the abuse wheel and the control and power wheel, let's take each one of those categories and really educate ourselves on them. Financial abuse, research finances as much as you possibly can so you don't get caught in a situation. You know? And absolutely. And, you know, if you need to go to a bank and get someone who, you know, as a woman, I have a woman who is in banking and she's been in this bank for years and she's my go-to. I have a question, something is said to me because I still have to deal with that. I go to that person. Yeah. And she protects me and she looks out for me. She makes sure no one else has access to my banking because that can happen sometimes. Sure. Yeah. And any questions I have about financial, what to do, there's that person, you know? Yeah. And so again, emotionally, I have a slew of people and it's through, there are organizations that will watch out for us and nobody can buy them off. Nobody can pay them. No, there's no coercion there. And that's not going to happen. So, you know, align yourself with people that will protect you and educate you also.
Good stuff there. Thank you so much for that. That's so powerful. We just had a guest a couple of weeks ago, Patty Handy, who works specifically with women who are coming out of divorces, who have been widowed, or who are single in general, and empowers them financially, because that's such a key thing but to find that person that you can trust that can guide you through that is just even more, and just around your whole community. But so thank you so much for that. That's so valuable. Talk to me about your why/your values and how that played a role in that and how that plays a role today and what you say yes and no to, what you allow around you, because I think, and even just with the trust in who you can trust and who you're going to surround yourself with, what role does that play?
Well, I never changed who I am as a person. I was always love. We talked about that. Yeah. And that's my core value. And my core value is also spirituality, religion. I know that there is some sort of higher being greater than myself. My ancestors, the women that I've come from, you know, it makes over 4,000 people to create just us. Wow. Half of them are men, half of them are women. Yeah. And you think about their struggles. Sure. You know? I mean, we've got it good at this point. And I mean, granted, we're going backwards a little bit as far as women's rights, but the next generation, I assure you, will take care of that. Yeah. I'm confident. I've got 3 daughters in their 20s. Exactly. They're on it. Yep. There you go. Right. My 18-year-old went and she lobbied in our state's capital for women's rights. Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. Yeah. But let's just think about what, and it doesn't matter, you know, some had it worse than others, let's say in the past. Yes, we know that. But they all had it. It wasn't easy for them in any sense. Listen, just by doing laundry on that washboard, boy, I mean, you know, no matter what, however they felt, they had to do it. So, you know, little things like that. And that that energy is running through us. And when I thought about that, I mean, I put up pictures everywhere of my grandmother, my great grandmothers, my sisters, my aunts and uncles, my cousins, everywhere around me. When in my kitchen where I was cooking, I have since moved from that home, but where I was cooking, I literally had pictures of all of them over my shoulder as if they were in the kitchen with me. And I would turn my head and talk. So there was that feeling and that strength. But, you know, my value has always been number one for myself and the people around me, but my children. I knew I had to I didn't have time to, you know, stay on the floor. I didn't have time to lay in bed. I didn't have time to be sick. I didn't have time to do that because it was me. And I still feel that way today because, you know, there's been quite a few people that love and support them. And those people something's going to happen to them because of their own choices. And no matter what, I will still stay solid because of my children, because and they know it. And no matter what happens, I will always love them, accept them, and I will take care of them if need be in whatever way they need. And so that's number one. And I'm like that with my family members and my closest friends. We are each other's emergency contact, my best friend and I. And, and no matter what, that is what kept me going. My value is to take care of people.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter in whatever form. It could be helping somebody with their grocery cart, whatever it is. There's a woman who you could tell the energy if someone doesn't feel good about themselves. And, as a
you really
being,
can.
You can. And, as a human being, you say, oh, I love the color of your shirt. It looks so nice on you, whatever it is. And, if you say it from your heart and you feel it.
Right.
I mean, you really are helping the world in some form or another, because I do believe in, the trickle down theory. I do believe in the butterfly effect. Choices you make now is how the world goes around. So my values were never questioned in my own head.
Sure.
Were they kind of brought to my attention that I should question my values and my self-worth? 100%. Do I believe that now? Absolutely not. The proof is in the pudding, as they say.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it's not, there are no shades of gray. For me, it's black or white. Now, do I think that people are trying to figure themselves out these days? Yeah, I do. And I found forgiveness a lot. There is room for forgiveness. But that's where that boundary goes up. And, let them work on themselves.
Sure.
And I would say definitely in a romantic relationship, somebody has hurt you, let them work on themselves.
Yes.
But there would have to be, so for me, trust in that issue, obviously, in that section of life or what have you, that category is really tough. That's my hardest category. It's who to trust romantically going forward. I mean, I've tried it, not a couple times, but I've tried it and it didn't work for me. And I realized I'm not ready yet.
Yeah.
I'm not ready because I might have accepted things that didn't feel good and I didn't listen.
Yeah.
And so I backed away and I thought, all right, let that person work on themselves. Let me work on myself because I know who I am and I know what my values are. Let them figure themselves out.
Yeah. There's so much. I'm so glad you said that because I think that that's one of those things that we have to really remember is we cannot fix people. So many times we keep thinking, especially when we get into these traumatic, abusive situations, we keep thinking we can make it better. No, we cannot. And it's not our responsibility to. It's their responsibility to.
Right.
And they may not choose to do that.
Right.
And if they don't choose to do that, then that's when you're like, okay, this isn't,
that's on you.
I got to back away. And that's on you. That is your responsibility. It is not on mine. So I'm so glad you brought that up. Thank you so much for all of that.
You're welcome.
Talk to me about living out of your own expectations versus others. I think that this has got to be a really interesting conversation. As you've come into this, and you are doing that now. You are living out of your own expectations. You are taking what has happened to you and using it to help other people, but you're also not denying the trauma. And you've surrounded yourself with tools and people and resources to help you walk that out. But talk to me just about the expectations piece, because I think sometimes when you come out of situations like people have a lot of expectations about how they think you'll be able to show up or what choices you should be making, all those kinds of things. You lived for years in a situation where someone was dictating their expectations, manipulating that and allowing themselves to dictate the expectations versus you living out of your own all the time. So talk to me about that journey now of living out of your own expectations versus others.
It's a great question. It's funny. My daughter said to me the other day when I told her, when your child goes to college and they're over the age of 18, you have to sign forms to the power of attorney. And there's a whole battle because she's a tough little cookie. She wants to be independent and she is very independent. Yeah. And I said to her, don't worry, I'm not going to look at your grades. I have no interest in that because I haven't needed to for years.
Right.
And she said, Mom, no one's going to be harder on me than myself. And which I already knew. And it was like, oh, like you feel for these kids. And it's true. And honestly, I completely know where she gets it from. My hand is being raised at the moment. And I realize, and that's also why I want to educate myself, because we have to have balance in that.
Yeah.
Because that is also part of the whole boundary, not boundary thing, or, wanting to be of excellence. And, I wanted to be an excellent partner. I wanted to be an excellent spouse. I wanted to be an excellent friend or a guest or what have you. And I was.
Yeah.
To my detriment.
To your cost. Exactly.
To my cost. Exactly. So, no one's going to be harder on myself than myself. Except when it comes to letting it go. Because I hear that over and over. Don't live in your past. Let it go. And I think to myself, and I've said to a couple of people, don't you think that if I had the opportunity that I would? And when they don't answer, I say, let me answer that for you. I absolutely would. If I could let it go, if I could stop remembering, if my body could stop remembering.
Sure. I mean, that's so much of it. Your body stores up that trauma.
Right. Hence the book. Right.
Yeah. Body keeps the score.
Body keeps the score. Correct. So, and then it's realized that, I'm not going to let this hold me back. I'm going to keep moving forward. And no matter, as long as you keep doing that, and you're going to have days when you go back, but like a bow, it'll catapult you, a rubber band that you pull back and you let go.
Yeah.
So my expectations change on a regular basis. My expectations are to get up and to show up no matter what. And that could mean getting up and taking a shower. It could be getting up and, making sure I eat. And going back to bed and getting up and attending to my barking dog outside the door. That's the second dog who finally found me. I mean, listen, these.
He tracked you down.
He did. He tracked me down. I'm trying to hide from him. It's like having toddlers.
So true.
I mean, honestly, if anybody grounds me, it's these two. So funny. So, my expectations are to get up and show up. It could be just getting up, taking a shower, getting up and feeding the dogs, getting them for a walk and go back to bed.
Yeah.
But at some point, it's just keep moving forward. For me, it's going up it's just going up that next rung. And you'll know when you're there, when you feel it. You'll know when things show up in your life. I mean, I'm getting job opportunities that I never in my life would know that I would get, that are not easy to get.
Sure.
And, and people showing up in your life or people supporting you and just things like that. Or, you could be disappointed in yourself, but somebody who you wouldn't think would show up in your life or give you a compliment. And you're like, really? Wow. Okay. Sometimes that's the mirror that you need to see. So, for me, it's just keep going forward. Like that 6 mile walk, 1 foot in front. I've gotten quiet, let's say, in some realms, or I can't keep going forward, or I can't write anymore. I can't make that one more step walking. And it's like, all right, take a minute, go back to your breathing, go back to like, I can do this, or your chant, and then just slowly, whatever it is, just slowly do it. Sometimes I do the backwards mom math, right? We have to be at school. We have to be at school in the bus stop or whatever this hour. It's going to take this much time to get those kids their shoes, wherever they find, put them at the door, by the way, people put them by the door every single night. Listen, I could do a whole podcast on parenting because I became an expert at that. Even including the laminated charts and the menus, but that's a whole nother thing. But it's true. I used those strategies of parenting to myself. It was about routine. It's all about routine. Right. My kids, especially because I had 2 special needs kids, it has to be routine because you never know what you're going to expect. But if the kids know that you have a routine, if you know that you have routine and you live up to it,
Yeah.
At least you can go back to that. Even if you spiral out of control, or a child's behavior spirals, whatever, boom, you go right back into the routine.
Yeah.
And it really
gives you some stability.
Correct. It gives you stability. So whatever it is. So right now I'm in between jobs because I went for a job where I had to do a major background check. It took 2.5 months. So I've been able to work as a healthcare. I've been able to work intermittently. Just became an empty nester. I'm in between homes to help out and be, the helper now with the parents. That's a whole nother podcast. And living with your older parents
that too.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so now you really have to focus on that childhood stuff. Let me tell you, that's a whole wow. Yeah. Okay. But you can heal it too. You can definitely heal it. So, and it's like, and I'm walking around and none of this is my stuff. I actually gave away everything except for my clothes and my childhood, my kids' drawings and poems and stuff.
Right.
I gave away everything. So, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, it's all spiraling, right? So what am I holding on to? I'm holding on to the breath. I'm holding on to the chant. I'm holding on to the educating myself. I'm holding on to the dogs. It's like, okay, how am I going to ground myself?
Yeah.
I'm living with people that use walkers. I have my legs to get up, my feet that can take me down the street and back again.
Yeah.
I can go in the grocery store and, I can buy myself something that's small, let's say, that I will indulge in. That will maybe help my nervous system. For me, it could be coffee. For someone else, it could be ice cream. Whatever it is.
Yeah.
It could be a dark piece of chocolate. It could be a great fresh apple. And, work on your senses and, things like that. So I'm off on a tangent. So you're going to have to bring me back from my own spiral.
No, but I love that senses piece. And I love how you laid that out and the possibilities within that. I think that's so important. Thank you. So that was also valuable and how you just, you continue to remind of, I have these tools. I have these resources. Life is changing. I'm going through different seasons, but I can still go back to this, and your ability to be mindful and attend to that in the moment and realize is so powerful. I'm so glad you've spoken to that so well today.
And I don't want any, but I'm going to say this though really fast is that old stuff comes up. I will tell you, it comes up. And listen, I'm still getting the financial abuse now, and I'm still getting, lies being told about me, and I'm still hearing and having to deal with the legal system and all of that. But, that's why I have to pull out my quote unquote Dora backpack, and I have to pull out my map and my tools and all of that, because that stuff might not stop. And you
can't control that.
No, and I can't control that at all.
Yeah.
And I will say that when that happens and he's still trying, or they're still trying to push me down in that water, there's no way, because I've got my life preserver and I've got a whole group of people. And I will tell you this, I've also told a group of people that are reputable. You're talking about national organizations, that if something happens to me, this is why. Yeah. And, the proof is in the pudding. If I can prove that I'm solid here and something, God forbid, happens to me, or if I have to do some sort of a testing and something's found in my body, that wasn't me. And I will tell you, that's also a great lesson to teach people that are going through things and have people around them.
Sure.
Tell somebody else, this is who I am. This is what I'm like, do a testing now. If you're worried about somebody putting something in do a test now, so you have base data.
Oh, wow. That's a good thought. I'm glad you said that. And also too, and this is kind of off, but I think this has to be just, do you notice in your medical work that you're more alert to things when you come across patients that you wouldn't be otherwise?
Yeah. I'm more alert. I'm more aware. I mean, listen, a lot of this, I talk about a lot of this while I'm with my patients, because I will tell you, we are not alone. Everyone, especially now, we are all alone in trauma. We are all, we're not alone in trauma. I should say the opposite. We're not alone in trauma.
Yeah. Yes.
It looks very different. It looks very different. But I've worked on children. I worked on very young children, and I worked on older people that are extremely successful. And there's trauma and sadness and grief and all of that in some form in their lives. And I've taught a lot of these to everyone across the board, whatever, in whatever relative way. It's like teaching first aid. It's like doing first aid. But like we said, I can teach them how to eat well if they need to lower their cholesterol. I can teach them what to do for themselves if their mental health isn't good.
Yeah.
But that the boundary lies in, I can only bring them and teach them so much.
Right.
And I cannot take responsibility.
Yes. Thank you for clarifying that, because that's so important to remember as a healthcare worker too.
Yes.
Like you can give these patients the tools and then you've got to release it.
I have to release it. And the same thing with being a mother. Same thing with being a mother.
Absolutely.
I learned that when my children became teenagers, I can give them all the tools and success, whether it be a notebook, school supplies, whether it be the right teachers, the tutors, the psychologists, whatever it is that child needs, the food, of course, on the table, whatever it is that child needs. But it really is up to them.
Yeah.
And you can only just, I'm here for you whenever you need. You don't want to study and that's your test. Or if you're struggling and, do your best. And that's it. Get up and show up. It's the same.
Get up and show up. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. No, so true. So true. Thank you so much for that. Accepting the layered aspects of ourselves. All those parts of our life, our seasons, our choices that make up who we are. Because in my journey, I've found that until you can really get a grasp on that, it's really difficult to prioritize yourself, your care, see your value until you're willing to accept all those parts of yourself. So talk to me about your layers journey.
Okay. I think that we as humans are, first of all, you have incredible questions, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
I really want to tell you that. And I love them because some of them are very, they're very common and yours are not. And I love there are layers of your questions. So the layers as humans, we have so many. I think that, where I'm at now, I think requires, of course, unpeeling all the layers and going back to the first one.
Yeah.
And we realize the depth of who we are as human beings. I'm very, like I said earlier, I'm very, very, what's the word? I support the butterfly effect theory entirely. Mm-hmm. And every choice we make affects everything. Mm. And, we can all probably sit and think about that. In my writing of my first book, I asked someone who had just had his book come out, and he was very wise, young guy, very wise though, because he's been involved in a lot of different things his entire life since he was a young teenager. And he said, I want you to write down every single thing that's happened to your life and to you in your life, everything you've done. I was like, what? You're kidding me. I'm like, that'll be the whole book. And he said, exactly. He said, exactly. And I was like, oh my God, I don't want to think about it. There's so much. Yeah. And, that's what it is. It's each layer is so important. So important, not just for us, but for everybody that we're around.
Yes, absolutely.
Life. I mean, I wouldn't be the type of mother that I was if I didn't have the upbringing or the parental units. Sometimes parents can be role models and sometimes they can be reverse role models.
Yes, so true. Yeah, absolutely.
And then there's all the ones in between. And, even our parents are going to be different, let's say, when we're adults as they were when they're kids, because they're seeing their mortality. Yeah. Or maybe they're just like, or maybe some of them are just like, I'm done. I'm just going to live out each day or sleep all day or, eat whatever I want and not care about my health. Yeah. Whatever it is. And I'm going to say whatever I want. The older generations now, I can say whatever I want. Yeah. And you're like, no, you can't. Can't do that.
No. And also too, the willingness to keep learning or not is a choice.
Correct. Well, exactly. And so that was going to be part of it. So, going backwards. And I personally have a lot of role models, fictional role models. I like to watch a lot of period pieces. I like to watch shows. And when I'm watching shows, I do. I mean, like, God forbid I should just watch a show to watch a show or a reality show for silliness. I can't. I just can't. And everyone makes fun of me. Everyone makes fun of me. Everywhere I go, I have a journal or a book and a pen or something, or I find a napkin. You know, I'm always doing something because I want to remember it. But I have a lot of role models in theory as far as like characters in a movie, or, you know, if I see a period piece, it could be someone from, you know, historical fiction or whatever it is. And it's not the entire person, let's say. Maybe it's the way that they are with their spouse. Maybe it's the way that they are in their profession or their resiliency or whatever it is. You know, some of us use it as, you think of trendsetters and how that affects what we decide to wear, or even the way we talk, what we do with our hair. So, you know, as far as the layers go, I mean, it's just, I think that layers go in height and in width, because this could be me at this age in my 50s, and there's so many layers already, and now I'm going wide. And and you know, there might be also two different people. You know, there's the me, the person that I was, or I don't want to say that, because I literally I'm very big on rituals. I had a ritual of taking all of the pictures and the cards and whatever manipulation tactics were given to me. And I literally went outside and I burned them. And I prayed for her, and I buried the ashes, and I said a prayer, and then I thanked her for surviving the old me. And I promised her that I would live in the light and no longer the darkness, and live my best life for both of us. Kind of like what I wanted to do with the person that I had lost years ago. The same thing. And I am still doing that. So, you know, so that still exists. The person I am now going forward is the stronger of the two, obviously. So there's the one, though, that experienced the trauma and is still going through it. And the one where, so, you know, there's like a foot here and then there's a foot moving forward, kind of like when you walk. And that one, you know, that one going forward. And I have to be patient with myself, which everyone's like, stop being so hard on yourself and stop, because my expectation of excellence, you know, I was like, I can do that. I've done this before. I can do it again. Well, you know, maybe you can't today. You know, maybe today I could walk 6 miles. Maybe tomorrow, I don't know if I'm able to walk at all. You know, it might be too sore, but, you know, that's okay. That's okay, because we all need a rest period. So like I said, the layers they can, you know, go backwards, they can go forwards, and they can go widthwise. And just, I honor every part of them. You know? And especially the traumatic childhood one. I have pictures of her up too.
Well, and I think that's powerful too. And I love what you said there. I honor every part of them. And I think that's a great way of putting that, because it's acknowledgement. It doesn't mean you love it all, but you acknowledge it all and you honor it. And I think I love the way you put that. Thank you so much for that. That was really powerful. In summary, in living out F.E.E.L, finding empowerment, embracing layers, which you are in an active route on in your life. This is what you are doing. This is how you are living. How has this affected the quality of your relationships?
They're more open. They're more open. You know, I was kind of, even since childhood, everything was a secret. What went on behind closed doors, nobody knew, or, you know, and then I was told in certain situations not to tell anybody, not to say anything. And some of those things, because I'm not out to hurt anybody. This is not what this is about for me. For me, it's about myself, and then helping other people. And then with my children, teenagers especially. And I work with all these groups still. And now I do. And the LGBTQ community, all of it, religious groups, I work with all of them, because, you know, if I could do it, everyone else can too. And if you need help, I'll get you that help. Because we're not alone in that. And so I'm not out to hurt anyone, but yet I'm also not going, and in that, I should say, I'm not out telling stories about what happened. I'm not using names. I don't have any desire. A lot of it's just, you know what? God bless you. I can love and forgive from afar. I also want to make sure that I'm safe and my kids are safe.
Yeah. That's a great way of putting that. Love and a gift from afar.
love and bless from afar. You can love and bless from afar. You don't have to respect them. You don't have, it's just like, God bless. You know what?
Yeah.
I love you, or I loved you at some point. I'll always send love to you. Work on yourself. Even if you're a sociopath, just stay away from me. Stay away from me.
Yeah.
And if I can, stay away from anyone else that I love.
Yeah.
If they can't stay away from your children, at least let them stay away from your family.
Yeah.
Your extended, your family of origin or whatever it is.
Sure.
Coworkers, just stay away. Stay on your side of the street or in your town. Stay whatever it is.
Yeah.
I forgive you. As Marianne Williams says, I forgive you and I release you to the Holy Spirit or whatever it is. I forgive you and I release you from my life.
Yeah.
And I do forgive. Because you know what? I will move on. But the person that hurt me,
forward piece,
I will move on. And that person that hurt me, he's got to live in his own. They have to live in their own.
Yes.
And, I'm sitting here, drinking water, coffee. I'm walking. I'm doing things. None of that's happening to me. I'm not out there. I became a little bit of a hermit. So there's that, but, I'm okay with that. Because you have to go within to go, like we said, to catapult. And the people that should be in your life come into your life and they're safe. And they're safe. And if they're not safe, you'll know.
Right.
It's like the dogs, like the cat, the cat starts to curl up and the hair, right? You'll become a cat. You'll get like that. What do they call it? That Sphinx. Like you get those senses in you.
Yes.
There's a reason. But the head will go up. Yeah. And they'll start looking around.
Hair stands on the end.
Or the tail, however they are. Anyway. Yeah. So for the animal metaphors. But it's true.
That's true.
Yeah. I mean, we're given a nervous system for a reason.
Absolutely.
So did I answer your question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it did. No, that was really good. I like what you said there. You're given a nervous system for a reason, and it's there to protect us. I think sometimes we see our nervous system and the feelings that come up with that as the enemy or bad. No. That's a clue. Right. That's a clue, and pay attention to those clues because they're there to protect you.
It is. Right.
And I'm so glad you spoke to that. We are down to the rapid fire.
Okay.
Name 5 activities that nourish you.
Walking. It's like a new phenomenon. It's an old new phenomenon. Animals, anything having to do with animals. It could even be like watching something outside, a bird, a little tiny bird pecking at something, or a squirrel holding an acorn, which I think is the cutest thing. Even videos, the animal videos just get me. And they totally take me out of that whole craziness. Talking to my best friend, reminiscing about, either old times or high school days or that sort of thing. Even talking about, I'm not dating, but even talking about someone dating and then telling me their stories. And it's like being able to laugh at the craziness of all of that goes on these days.
Yeah.
Yes. I was married for a long time and came out like, what is happening in this world? Like, okay. I was like, what?
I can't imagine.
So I've created my own little bubble and I'm okay with that. Reading, listening to your podcast, listening to anything that will give me new information, because there's also connection with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anytime I have a sip of a freshly made coffee, that really brings me joy. And, and then being with my children in any sort, even with my older son who thinks he's like so cool and, he can be cool, but still there's that little piece when I go to hug him and he runs for me and I chase him, and he starts laughing. It's that laughter. It just gets to me, or seeing and hearing my child fight for what she believes in and being proud of who she is and helping other people. I think that really, those are the things that really get to me. It's not complicated. I realize
it's
that I don't,
so true.
Having a bank account to pay my bills is good. Having a roof over my head, absolutely. And being able to, but I've been in situations where I didn't have a roof, or I'm in somebody else's house, or I've been in a situation where my daughter and I didn't have very much food. And it was recently, and it wasn't because of our not working hard. It was because of somebody else. It was the financial abuse piece. And we did it, and we worked it out, and we figured, how can we dance with this? How can we work this out? And so, I like solving problems and creating solutions, and if you pull back from the emotion part of it, okay, as a mother, I cried because I couldn't, get her lavish meals, but together it was like, okay, well, let's see what we have and let's come up with a solution and how can we work this out? And we did, because when you do it once, it's like success leads to lose, or there's a formula. And once you've fixed that formula and you've worked it out, like any other chemical experiment, it's going to happen again. You know how to do it.
Yeah.
And so that really brings value to my life. It also brings joy.
Good stuff there. Thank you so much. All right. 5 words on how you want to feel the next 6 months.
5 words?
Yes.
Content. Peaceful. They kind of go hand in hand, but they're a little different. I think we know.
Yeah.
I'd like to feel excited about something. Not for, we all know the difference about getting excited.
Yeah.
Compassionate. I mean, that's a given, but your questions are phenomenal. So I want to say in love, romantically, I feel like I can feel love, getting little gifts, writing little Post-it notes to a coworker, that sort of thing. Somewhere along the lines, I'll get back into romantic love. There's a difference. We all know there's a tiny little shift there. But more so than that, I mean, that'll come whenever it's meant to, like I tell my kids or other teenagers, is I want to feel of value, not valued, but of value.
Yeah. I think that's kind of the sweet spot. If we can get to that, that place, that contentment, that peace, that value, that is where we get to our sweet spots and the rest of it comes together. Michelle, thank you so much for this. You have been such a great resource and encouragement to women that have been, or maybe are currently right now in abusive situations that they need to get out of. You give hope, you give encouragement, you give concrete, palpable resources and ways to help yourself and how to surround yourself with those things and those people. Thank you so much for that. Don't worry. Go to embracinglayers.com. Michelle will list her sources, and that will be on our website when the episode releases, how she can help you, what resources she offers herself, and all these things that we talked about in the episode today as well. Michelle, is there anything else you want to add in terms of how you help women these days with your work?
Well, I have a website. It's fromthefloortothedoor.com, which is the title of my first book. And you have to put the .com in, apparently. Okay, so anyway, I guess there was a movie or something. I don't know. But anyway, so there are a couple of writing pieces. I actually stepped back a little bit from it, to be honest. Very transparent, which is what I am now, transparent and vulnerable, because, real life hits and you have to take a kid to college and get a new job move. So, but there's a few writing pieces, right? There's a few writing pieces on there. And I'm going to address that because I haven't stopped writing. I just have to get to that. And, again, being transparent and vulnerable is okay. And not being perfect, everyone, is okay, because there is no such thing. So I forgive myself for that. So, but anytime anyone needs to reach me, they can email me and I will get back to them, especially if you need help There are really some really great national organizations for women, like Women Distress, the National Coalition of Domestic Violence. There are so many great, and they have emergency buttons if God forbid somebody comes in and you need to switch that. But there's so many different awareness and programs. So there's help out there. And you can always reach me.
And we'll share those. Perfect. And we'll share those resources that you just mentioned in our sources document as well. And so when you fill that out, just fill all that in and we'll have all that on there so that you, audience, have those resources for you or for someone you love or for someone that you even suspect might need them. Again, trust those instincts, not only for yourself, but if something looks fishy to you with a loved one, whether a family member, a friend, a mom, a coworker, that you run across, in your day-to-day, listen to that and know that these resources are there. But again, Michelle, thank you so much again for being with us. And podcast audience, go to these resources, use them. They're there to help. We're here to support you. And be safe. Take care of yourselves. Remember, I love what Michelle said at the end. Don't expect yourselves to be perfect. Give yourselves a break. Give yourselves grace and mercy.
There's no such thing. There's no such thing as perfect. There's no end game there.
No, absolutely not. And keep taking one step forward and have a great week.